Greetings, Internet, and welcome to another episode of My Cool Friends. If this is your first time joining us, you should know I almost yanked out my headphones when I leaned back. And hello, and welcome to our new people. I am your host. My name is Ben Ebig. We do shows just like this on Fridays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Come join us. Come, if you want to see all the old episodes, go wander on over to the iTunes where you can see all of them for your viewing, or should I say for your listening pleasure. But today, my friends, today we have a very, very special guest for you. She is indeed a master of storytelling, but not just any storytelling. She is a master of brand storytelling, which, let me tell you, I have absolutely no idea how to do. What wonders await us beyond this threshold? How exactly do you do this? What is the difference between regular storytelling and brand storytelling? I don't know. More in the next part of Dragon Ball Z. But today, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome with homemade sound effects, Miss Shannon Busse!
Hey Ben, so good to be here. Thanks for having me.
It is a pleasure to have you here. How are you today?
I am doing well. No complaints. How about yourself?
I am happy it's Friday. I am happy to be here with you today. Let's start off with the most important question. You are a master of storytelling. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, well, I think people struggle for a few different reasons when it comes to stories, because if we think about it, I mean, our lives are made up of stories every single day. So many different moments can be turned into a story, but it often doesn't feel like a story. It just feels like regular life. And so people kind of struggle making that connection of like, okay, how do I turn this trip to the grocery store, into this symbolic moment that becomes larger than that one little moment that they experienced? And how do I make this relevant to other people? And when it comes to brand storytelling, it needs to not just be, a compelling story that relates to the people that you're talking about. It also needs to be aligned with what it is that you're selling. So, it has some marketing pieces to it, and it's very strategic in the journey that people take, you take people on in a brand story, but at the heart of it, it needs to have all of the same elements as a good story. It needs to be compelling and it needs to be relevant.
Yeah, I remember someone told me one time that the way that our the way that our brain works is that we see ourselves as characters in a story. Like,
yes,
we are going through life, and we are a character almost in a storybook, along with all of our other people that we interact with.
Yeah.
So with that being said, how is brand storytelling different than or is it the same than just regular storytelling?
So all of the elements that make a great story, just a general story, apply to brand storytelling as well. It needs to be compelling. It needs to be relevant. It needs to have, a transformational moment in it that really makes the story line compelling and interesting. So all of that is the same. The pieces that are added that make it a brand story are the strategic marketing pieces. So, at some point in the story, you're going to insert that your product is actually a solution to the problem that the character in the story is struggling with. And then you're going to show people how that affects them. And so how your service or whatever it is that you're selling can make their life better. So it's like you're taking them on a journey in your story. So it still has kind of the same story arc, but it features your services and your products, and then it showcases what life is like on the other side of those services or products, so that your clients, when they hear it, they're like, oh yeah, this is me. I'm struggling with all those problems. Oh yeah, like I need that solution too. Oh yeah, that's really what I want my life to look like. I want to fix this problem so that I can get to the other side, and it's, kind of a happy, happy ending. So those strategic marketing pieces don't necessarily need to be involved in any other kind of storytelling, but they're vital if you're trying to use these stories in your brand.
Yeah, it like what you're describing is almost like when we think of a story, we think of an arc.
Yes.
Almost, but in this case, the arc of like, oh hey, the transformational journey. In this case, the top of the arc in this case is your product or service.
Yeah, and you're able to showcase a few important things. One is why what you do matters so much. So you really get to share some of your heart, which is going to increase trust, because they could go out and hire any of the 10,000 other business owners that's selling the same thing as you are and saying, oh, come to me because my customer service is great and my quality is great. Yeah, you and everybody else. That doesn't differentiate you.
Right.
But if you tell a story of, when I was a kid, this happened to me and it was so hard for me to get through. And so because of that, I've dedicated the rest of my life to really helping people solve that particular problem. That's a whole different angle that you're bringing, and you're really building that rapport and that trust, and that, yeah, I want to hire you instead of the 10,000 other people doing the same thing, because I now have an emotional connection to you. So, that piece is really important in the storytelling. And then you're also positioning your product so that it's not just a product. It's not a long list of, here's my benefits and this is why you should hire me or buy
here's
this
the
particular
stack
product
on my page.
Yeah, right. It, like, that kind of marketing, people are tired of it. It has no human element to it. It's not emotional. It's not compelling, really. It's just very, very dry. And it might help logical buyers, but if you have an emotional component to it as well, so that they're like, oh my gosh, I really want this transformation, or that aspiration at the end of your story, that's what I want. I want to be healed from this trauma. I want to overcome the struggle that I'm really facing in my life. And you are the person to take me on that journey. And your service is the answer that's really going to get me there. So it positions your service really well, but it does it in a very authentic and very heart-centered way. And I'm all about integrity. Like, people can use storytelling in manipulative ways. And I do not ever work with businesses that are interested in that, because
that's a whole conversation that we could get into, and we just might.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna put a bullet point in that topic, and we might come back to it. But I want to touch on something that you said at the beginning of that thought, which is the heartfelt, the heartfelt part, that secret ingredient. If there's someone else that's listening right now, it's like, ooh, that's the spice. I need that. How do you put the heartfelt parts of your story or your business into like your storytelling, or into like a web page that is like, in a world that's so mechanical? How do you put that human heart connection into that?
This is almost always where we have to dig into some areas of their lives that they might not necessarily want to go initially, because often the deepest power in our story are in the darkest places of our lives. And over again, when I work with clients, it's the struggle that they overcame. It's the giant void in their life. It's the thing that was missing for so long, that we're able to really find the heart of why they do what they do. And when I find that, then it's easy to really make the connections, because I can always find an angle. No matter what it is that they want to bring in or leave out of their story, I can always find the angle that makes it really symbolic. So, for example, I think, Chrissy, she does Facebook ads.
Yes.
And so her story really is kind of how she found her calling in life right after her father passed away. And when I was doing the interview and we were kind of, I was going over her history, I was going through the framework that I take clients through when we do that one-on-one work. And we realized that there were so many lessons that she learned growing up because her dad ran a small engine repair shop. And so finding that symbolic connection, realizing that her dad was a tremendous impact on her life, but then that symbolic connection that he repaired engines. And that's what she does in Facebook ads, right? She repairs broken sales engines. She looks at the entire organization of somebody's business. She looks at all of their offers, all of their funnels, all of their everything out there. And she figures out, okay, what's broken? What can I fix? How can I repair this to get this engine running that can bring in leads and can bring in, the people that are meant to be served in that particular business. And when you can find those kind of symbolic connections in the story of where you came from, it allows business owners to show up in entirely new ways in their business, because they're not staying small and like, okay, here's my list of benefits and here's how much my products cost. Like, you don't have to talk about any of that anymore, because it suddenly is, you are selling an experience with you. And that's just a whole different level of marketing.
Right. It got me. We were in a mastermind not too long ago, and we were talking about like kind of like the sort of mindset shift that you're talking about, where I told someone like at one point, like something just sort of clicked, where I said like, oh, hey, I no longer need to create an offer. I need to replace one. Okay. And also like, oh, I said that out loud. Like, it wasn't like, oh, I'm creating this thing for someone. I know who I know who it is. It's no longer an approach of scarcity. And we were having this, when I was having this conversation with someone who like just went through that experience of like getting their first like paid client to them. And it's like the vocabulary changes when like where, like when like where your destination is, you can just say it out. Like you can just say these things and then you can say these things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. It's almost like, I mean, through the story process, it's pretty deep and and it's pretty personal, but it shifts the way people see themselves. Right. It shifts the way that they see their past, and there's less like imposter syndrome just doesn't hold so much power when you really understand, oh, this is why my business is so important to me. For example, for me, there was a point in my life where everything was falling apart. The entire life that I had built, that was like, okay, this is my happily ever after, all of a sudden came crashing down. And I realized, oh no, this wasn't my happily ever after. And I was actually living in a narrative that someone else was creating that I didn't even know about. And it was unbelievably destabilizing. But at the same time, it forced me into a position where I had to figure out who I was, and I needed to start telling my own story. And nobody should ever feel disempowered when they're relating to their own life, because the evidence that you already are who you want to be is already there. It's there in the small moments, in the big moments, in the hard things that you've gone through and the things that you've overcome. You just need to be able to see it and separate it from, oh, this just feels like life, and realize, oh, wait a minute, this is a powerful story that can actually empower other people and can draw clients to me because it can showcase how much I can help them.
I want to talk about that thought for a moment. The idea of the narrative that someone else has created. So a lot of times I refer to it as programming. Like so whether it be like good programming or bad program, but sometimes like some people have so much programming in them that they are like almost walking through life with a narrative that is not theirs, and they're not even realizing it.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear like both like your broad thoughts and also like, just how like you must be you're obviously touching on this because like you have like some experience in this. So I'd love to hear your overall thoughts on this.
Yeah, for sure. I was launched into this world because of my personal experiences, because of like, wait, nope, this isn't who I am. Like, you
Mhm.
don't get to write me into the villain. I'm gonna take I'm
Yeah.
gonna take the pen back and start, creating my own life
This is mine now.
right, exactly. And so it was very, very empowering. But before that, I was living a life out of um the patterns that came out of childhood, the way I was raised, the unquestioned assumptions that were being made, the culture that I was part of. I was living a
Mhm.
very small, very permission based life. And this crisis all of a sudden cracked all of that open. And I was like, sitting there amid all of these broken shards of beliefs and ideas and internal stories, right? Stories that I was telling myself about my life, about myself, about everything. And I had to sit there and sift through these things and decide what I was going to pick up and what I was going to leave behind. And what I find when I work with clients is that that's always true. I mean, all of us have internal stories that we come out of childhood with. And, even if we didn't have a traumatic past or an abusive childhood or, some significant, really hard thing that we faced, it could be as simple as, one day my dad criticized me tremendously. And since then, I have tried to avoid criticism and make sure that I always did everything right. And then I
Mhm.
get to my adult life and I'm like, oh, wait, I'm so afraid of doing something wrong that I'm not taking any chances on myself. And
I'm so afraid of change that now I just stay within safety
yeah,
and like and then all of a sudden you get these people that like stay within a dead end job until they die.
yeah, yeah. And all of us, I mean, all of us come out of childhood with those kind of stories. And it's, it is so good for us when we are able to step back and see them. Because
Right.
when we see them, then we can say, okay, all right, I see this here. It doesn't get to control me without my knowledge anymore because I can
Right.
see it when it happens and I can take responsibility and I can shift it if I choose to. If I can realize, oh, wait, this is not creating the result that I want. So I'm going to do something about this and I'm going to shift the narrative.
Hmm. And I think like there's also an important first step of that process as well. And it's that asking yourself, what do you want?
Yes.
Because so many of us go through our like decades of our lives without ever having anyone ask that question or asking ourselves that question.
And I'll actually dial it back one step further
Oh,
because I totally agree with you. But I think that there's a vital step that has to happen even before you can ask yourself what you want. It's the realization that you have the power to choose.
oh,
And often people don't stop. They just kind of go through the motions and they do what they're
mm-hmm,
supposed to do and they try to follow everybody else's frameworks or patterns and they don't stop and say, actually, I get to choose. I don't have to carry all the
mm-hmm,
perceptions of everybody else. I don't have to worry about how this person is interpreting my behavior. I get to just choose what I do. I get to choose my behavior. I get to choose what I learn and what I love and what I want for my future. And then once they realize that they have that power to choose, then they can start asking themselves, okay, what do I want?
I,
And then it's like, all right, what internal stories are helping me and what internal stories are not helping me? And let's sift through these and figure out what I'm going to leave behind and what I'm taking with me.
right. I remember that this was like a thought from a podcast a long time ago, but I remember someone was sharing like sort of that part of life where all your friends like look at you funny and they're asking like, oh, why aren't you having kids?
Yeah.
And like his thought was like kind of like maybe the reason why a lot of people have that thought of like, oh, why aren't you having kids? It might be because like that might be kind of like the first moment in your life where a lot of the people in your friend group are making different like there's a fork in the road life decision right there. Like you all go to school at the same time. you all get a license and a car at the same time. You all graduate and go to college at the same time. You're getting girlfriends and getting married at the same time, and then all of a sudden, there's a divergence.
Yeah, it's that. Yeah, it is. It's that when there's a divergence, when you realize, oh, wait, I'm an outlier, or when there's a
Mm-hmm.
crisis. Honestly, if you're going through a crisis, if there's trauma, there is unbelievable capacity at that time for you to change in bigger ways than would have been possible if you hadn't been going through that crisis or realized, oh, wait, I'm an outlier and
Right.
I don't want to run the race that everybody around me is, is
Right.
running.
Yeah. What a fantastic conversation. Just the sheer thought of like, I don't think I want to do that.
Yeah, it's powerful. It's powerful, and it's crazy how many people don't stop and ask themselves that.
Mm-hmm. I want I want to go on to another conversation, another point that we touched on, and it's the thought of integrity that you touched on. And I'd love for you to expand your thoughts on this topic because I have many thoughts on this.
Yeah. Well, okay, so anyone that is familiar with the marketing world knows that it's pretty much a hot mess. Sometimes there's a lot of companies, a lot of people out there that are less interested in the impact of the way they're interacting with the world, or less interested in the impact of their product or services, and more interested in what they get from it. What's their bottom line? How much money are they making? And so then they resort to emotional storytelling as a way to draw people in
Mm-hmm.
without having a matching um, dedication to the transformation and to the impact in that person's lives. And it's horrible. It's
Mm-hmm.
psychologically manipulating. And, unfortunately, there's people out there that have really cracked the code on this, and they know exactly what to say, and they know how to frame something. And so, it's always important, as a client, as a potential customer, to really pay attention to the subtle things that are happening around the story, right? Are you getting the sense that, this
Mm-hmm.
company is this person like really cares about you as a person? Like, do they see you? Do they understand what you're struggling with? Do they care about how their product or their service impacts their life? Or is it just a way to draw you in, get a quick sale, and then you're on your own? Um,
Right.
yeah. So this is one of those things that we could have a whole series, about
By
this.
all
And
means, take as much time as you need.
so, I mean, the people that I work with, they worry about using their story manipulatively. And
Okay.
so the good news here is that if you are worried about that, chances are you are 100% good, because the people who actually use storytelling manipulatively, they don't stop to worry about it. And so that's one way to reassure yourself, is that if you are even aware of that as a problem, then you are so much farther ahead than the manipulative marketers that are out there, because you're concerned about that. And you can, you can take that little seed,
Mm-hmm.
realize, okay, I don't want to use my story manipulatively. And so I'm just going to tell my story authentically, and it's going to be an invitation. I'm not going to use it to compel people to come, to make them feel sorry for something or whatever, to influence that way. I'm telling my story to showcase what's possible for them if they work with me, and it's 100% invitation based marketing. And it's
Right.
not manipulative in any way. And so, if any of you listening to this have that concern, that's one of the ways that you can get to the place where say, okay, this is a concern. I'm going to make sure that this is invitation based, and I'm not shaming. I'm not blaming. I'm not, trying to compel anyone. Like, if you don't have any of those three in
Mm-hmm.
motivations in the story that you're telling, you're good.
Yeah. I always come like I have this story always at the back of my head. Um, is that like I remember I was on a sales call with someone, and I'm gonna keep this brief. And I'm also gonna censor names, because someone listening might know this person. Um, But the essence was that basically this person was hitting a whole bunch of those like check boxes that you're talking about, to the point where I just said to this person, could you please stop reading the script in front of you? uh and eventually it got to like a point where he used like what are essentially called like pain points. If you're not familiar with those, it's like sometimes this is a technique that's actually used by like colleges and universities.
Mhm.
Where it might sound a little bit like, oh, I thought you wanted to do this. Do you want to be working at McDonald's for your entire life? Like some
Shame-based.
yeah, some
Yeah.
sort of it's like some sort of like dig of some kind that you want to leave with the person as like some sort of shame for not buying your thing. And again, this is a script. There's no promise on the other side of that's even gonna get you out of a McDonald's based job, but I digress. So yeah, I heard all these points, and then he used the pain point, and I personally knew the person that this sales representative was representing, and it was sort of like I didn't feel like what he was saying was matching up with what the individual
Mhm.
would say, and it was sort of like I sort of felt that disconnect, and it always felt like I always look back on that as sort of felt autonomous, like everything like we have grown to the point where we just put things through a machine that is like proven to work in order to get people to buy the thing, you know. And that's kind of like why I like talking about the integrity part of things, because it's like, yeah, people have mapped out the human psyche to where I can just put it on a sales page and then la di
Yeah.
da and goodbye.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, if you're ever in that situation and they're using tactics or even stories that make you feel less than in any way, or smaller, or disconnected, I mean, if the
Mhm.
story or what they're saying is making you feel worse about yourself,
Mhm.
then it's manipulative, right? Like there's no place for that. Even invitation-based marketing can leave someone feeling more encouraged and more hopeful in themselves, even if they don't buy your product. And
Mhm.
we need more of that. We need more of that, just that heart, that humanity, that, like, I value you as a person, and wish you the best of luck, whether you work with me or not. We
Right.
need more of that in the world.
I've I've kind of taken to like setting up my stuff almost like I set up my parties. Um, like, oh hey guys, by the way, we're throwing a party at this date. It's gonna be at this time. The party will happen whether or not you come or not, but I am inviting you because I care about you, and
Yeah.
I think you'll have fun at the party.
Yeah, yeah, and and it's I trust you to choose.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people out in the sales world that use, that they try to break down the barrier of cost, and that never sits well with me. I've been on sales
What
call
do you
before.
mean by that? Expand on that thought.
So yeah, so I'm going to tell you. So I've been on a sales call before where all of a sudden it was high pressure and very time sensitive, and
Oh,
like, she didn't have any capacity beyond that weekend. So if I didn't like send her the money right away, then she had no guarantees. That's kind of where I'm like, okay, we are not a good fit. I do not do that high pressure kind of tactics. And it when it comes to money, if you don't trust me to choose how I spend my money, I don't want to work with you. And so if you're on the other side of it and you're the salesperson and you get to the
mm-hmm.
point where I'm not sure if I can afford this, right? Just be generous with your trust and say, I understand. I trust you to choose when the timing is right. I trust you to choose if you can afford this. I trust you to choose if this is the right fit for your next step. And that is one of the most empowering ways that you can approach sales, because it leaves people better than you found them.
Right. Um, yeah. Like, I mean, I think a lot of seasoned people out there could tell you that there are so many people who like they've had like in their close circle that like they've like, oh hey, like trust is built up over a long period of time, not over a weekend.
Right, or 20-minute sales call.
Right, or a 20-minute sales call. And then you have people like building up that trust over a long period of time, and then that long period of time leads to, that referral or that client that you were expecting. But we live in a world full of dopamine highs that come to us and like instantaneous, and so there's so many people that are like come in here with that expectation, and then now we're stuck with this.
Yeah, it complicates things.
Mm-hmm. So I want to bring things full circle. Let's say someone here has listened to us like talk about these problems, and it's like, wow, what a world. How do we fix this, Shannon?
I know. How do we fix this? Well, you only control yourself. So you can't fix how other people behave or how they choose to interact or the stories that they, tell themselves or other people. But you have 100% control over yourself, the stories that you tell yourself that drive your behavior and your values, and the stories that you tell other people so they understand how they can relate to you. And the more aligned your stories are with the person that you want to be and the life that you want to build and the business that you're running, the better you will be able to attract the people that will benefit the most from what you do. So the answer that I have for that question, how do we fix the world, is we tell more true stories.
We tell more true stories. Shannon, where can people find you?
I am at shannonbusse.com. That's my website. So you can pop over there. I'm also, pretty active on Facebook. So feel free to send me a message there and, explain, hey, let's connect. But I'd love to, anybody that needs some story coaching or some done for you writing. I develop entire story-based messaging systems for businesses. So, if any of those sound like something that you need help with, I would love to hop on a call.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you have resonated with our conversation of integrity and telling true, authentic stories like this person right here, this Facebook user, then go over and contact Shannon Busse. That's her name. Right there. I'm reversed. That's her name right there. Go over and contact her, and she is more than happy to help you. Until then, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another fantastic interview from my cool friends. We will be back next week for another game show, and then the following week for another fantastic interview. Until then, ladies and gentlemen, have a safe and a happy weekend. Until then, bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thanks, Ben.